Okay, team. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the PFA Trade Journal. So as we all know, keeping track of our trades and our history is of the utmost importance, not necessarily because of a dollar amount or anything of that extent, but more importantly so that we can learn from our statistics. Lots of things that we can learn, so we've tried to put in a few of the most important in our opinion, and hopefully this will help you and be most advantageous along the way throughout your trading journey. So we'll start out with our monthly P&L tab. Now, if you notice down here at the bottom, we're going to be going through each of these. However, as we get into the months over here, we'll move a little bit faster. But for now, as we are on the monthly P&L, it is exactly what you would expect. It's a profit and loss report. So what we want to bring to your attention about this is exactly how it works. Ironically, there's nothing for you to do on this particular page. However, it is a report, so we definitely want to learn from it. So this is where we're going to come so that we study and learn from what we are doing throughout the context of each and every month as well as each day. So for example, we can track our daily, that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Sunday. So we added Sunday in there, you might be wondering why. But technically the futures markets and Forex, they're open on Sunday afternoon. And so in the event that a trade does happen to get placed or more importantly executed at that time, we felt it necessary to put Sunday in there for that particular reason. So that being said, we can track our P&L per day as well as per month. So we may say to ourselves, what's the total amount of all Mondays within the entire year? And you may be thinking to yourself, why is this beneficial? So if we run through that, we would then be able to say, okay, look, throughout the context of this entire year, we did really well on Wednesdays, but we did very poor on Mondays consistently. So then we could use that behavior and learn from it, right? So we could then say, well, perhaps we want to acknowledge the fact that Mondays are simply not a good day for our trading method or trading style. Wednesdays perhaps is the best, and so on and so forth. So we can alleviate poor times, and we can also pull in the most optimal times based on our P&L of our history, right? In other words, again, the statistics. Now, let's keep moving forward. If you notice, the next tab we have here is our monthly trades. So if I go ahead and click on monthly trades, notice that we have a little bit of a different look to it. And this is going to be the same in regards to the functionality, meaning that you don't have to do anything here. All of the numbers and everything that you're seeing here is going to be automated, and it's going to calculate itself based on your user input of your trades in themselves, which we haven't gotten to yet. So for right now, let's just focus on what this actually is. We're going through and we can see we have yet again Monday through Sunday. We can track this over the context of an entire year, and it will produce our totals for us and thereby apply them into our trades report. So what this is doing is actually totaling up your trades per day, per month, and it's displaying them. So let's talk about the benefit of this as well. It's kind of the same, along the same lines as the P&L, but in this case we're learning from our trade behavior. So maybe I could look back and say, well, I did very little trading on Mondays, but I did a lot of trading on Thursdays, and I did a fair amount on Wednesdays. Well, now we know that I made a lot of money on Wednesdays, very little on Mondays, right? So that was our worst day that we've determined. Now I see that I placed a fair amount of trades on Wednesday. So maybe I'm learning that I don't need to place a lot of trades, but I need to find the optimal times to trade. Okay, so again, I know here how many trades I'm placing per day, per month. I also can combine that with my P&L, and then I end up with a very good statistic that can help me determine when to trade, when not to trade, as well as how much I should or should not be trading. So if we keep going to the right here, we'll notice our next tab is the buy versus sell. If I go ahead and click on that, again, we are producing yet another report. So as I said when we began this, it's really about using the information that we have and determining our behavior based on statistics. This is yet another statistic. What am I doing in the context of the year per month? Am I buying or selling? So we're only going to do one or the other, right? We're only going to buy to go long or sell to go short. So we put that into a report, and we can now see what our totals are. I can see that in the context of this particular year, for example purposes, we bought the market only 13 times and we sold the market 23 times. Okay, so again, I can see what I'm doing throughout that year. I can see that I sold a lot more, and if my P&L is looking good, then I can see that my sell positions were producing quite well that year. So a lot of information. Now let's keep moving forward here. Next we have our trade plan. So our trade plan is going to produce a report on what implementation we actually used. This is of course based on the Pure Financial Academy methodology. So we're going to use a little bit of, obviously not the normal terminology, but we're using some acronyms here. So bear with us. We did go ahead and create this right here, this information, so it does table it out for you. As you can see here, for example, BO there stands for breakout, SD, supply or demand level, HIST SD, historical supply and demand level, and so on and so forth, right? You can read through those at your convenience. But if you notice over here in the left-hand column, you see those, right? So you see BO fib, right? Well, breakout, so BO stood for breakout. Over here you see fib, which is our Fibonacci confluence trading plan, right? So if you go into the trading course, you'll see the BO fib confluence strategy. You'll also see the SD fib confluence strategy, and so on and so forth. So again, here, all we're doing is we're letting ourselves know exactly which trade plan that we are using, and now I know, hey, this trade plan has worked extremely well for me, whereas this trade plan perhaps only worked okay, right? Maybe it didn't fit my style of trading. Maybe I like to be a little bit more short term, and that particular trade plan just didn't work as well for me. Irregardless of the reasoning, you will have a report here, and it will put it right here in the middle of your screen. Okay, so again, a lot of information that we have here. All of this is being derived automatically for you. So let's now look at what the user, and that would be yourself and myself included, what are we going to actually do in order to produce the reports? That leads us into our monthly tabs down here. So there's really not a need for me to go through every single one of them as they are all the same. Okay. So if I pop over here into the month of January, you can see down the left column, trades number 1 through 30. Now please do bear in mind, if for all intensive purposes you're a scalp trader and you place a lot of trades, we can work with you, perhaps add more in there, but 30 trades is quite a bit for a single month. But again, that's just, for us, it may not be nearly enough for you, and we do want to accommodate that. But as you can see here, defaulted, we do have up to 30 trades in the context of a single month. There's information that you will input here to allow the calculations to be derived. All right. So for one, we're going to keep it very simple. We are going to start with our ticker symbol. So as you can see here, this is the ES. Now, we don't need to get into all of the ticker symbols. I'm sure you're super advanced at this point and you're well aware of what all of this means. But this is essentially what you're trading, the asset in itself. So ES is the S&P 500 futures contract. It could be AAPL, right? That could be the Apple stock. So I could, change this to Apple if I desire, right? I could change it to anything that I want to. I could change it to the Dow. I could change it to the NASDAQ. Again, it doesn't really matter. You're just letting yourself know what instrument was I trading at that time. What instrument did this particular trade come from? So if we change that back here, we can see that this trade in itself came from the S&P futures contract. And the next thing I need to do is I need to go over here and I need to input the value of the individual tick increment. So for all intensive purposes, the S&P futures contract is $12.50. So I've input 12.5. Okay? I could, of course, put 12.50, but it's not really going to make a difference. So we have here 12.5. Now, what about the Dow? Okay, so if I go down here, these are, of course, dummy and educational purpose numbers. But let's go down here and be realistic for a moment. On the Dow futures, the YM is the ticker symbol for the Dow futures. So if I go over here, I need to know what that tick value is. In the Dow's case, it is $5. So I would simply input 5 there, okay? And then I would move on. And understand that this must be there. If I don't know what the value of the tick is, it's simply not possible for us to calculate proper numbers based or generate any form of a report. Okay, so this is very important. We must have the tick value and it must be correct. All right. Now, obviously this is something that you will need to do yourself. You have to input this because we can't go out and determine the tick value of every market that exists, but hopefully since you're trading the market, you will be very well versed and you will know all of the details in regards to that particular market. All right, tick value being one of the most important, I would say. So next we're going to say, what day did the trade get executed? Now for myself, I prefer to use the date that the trade was executed, not the trade that I actually, not the date that I placed the trade, but that's a personal opinion. Okay, you may decide that you would rather exercise the right to put it on the day that you place the trade, and that's perfectly fine too. It's just however you want to do it. But if you want to be consistent with the way that I would use it, I will put the date here of when the trade was actually filled or executed. Very important. And again, this is for statistical purposes. You want to obviously be aware of exactly when you got the fill of that particular trade as well. Now, next we're going to say what day was the trade filled on. So of course this will line up with the date, right? But over here, notice there's a drop-down menu, and in that drop-down menu there's Sunday through Friday. Now there's no need for Saturday because we don't trade on Saturdays, but again, Sunday through Friday, these are all options. Now I want you to note here, this is very important. There must be a day here to calculate all the proper information. So in this case, we have Monday. Now you need to simply select from the drop-down menu here as things are coded in the background, right? So let's select from there Sunday through Friday. And when you make a change here, everything on these monthly reports over here is going to change as well. So again, it's automatically calculating the information here. So we have our day option there. Simply input the time in which the trade was executed so that you can also go back and recall when that occurred. Now the next thing we want to talk about is our reason. So this is for the most part pretty straightforward, but I would like to leave very detailed notes here on exactly what I saw at that time. Why did I place this trade? What was I thinking? Give all of my thoughts or just the general reason for the trade itself. And I know this seems minute and it may not even be important to you, but what I've found in my experience is, we have a lot of situations, a lot of trades, a lot of things to remember, and it's very nice when I can look back at something and not have to try to overthink it, right? I can just look back and have my notes right there, and it makes things a lot more organized and just a lot of things easier and more well thought out. Okay, so let's keep moving forward. Next, we're going to have another drop-down menu. So this is that trade plan. Here we can see that we have the BO fib, SD fib. There's multiple options here. Each of these are a trade plan that we have provided for educational purposes only. So we can select which one we used at that time with this particular trade. Next, we have TF and CT. TF stands for trend following, CT stands for counter trend. So was I with the direction of the market when I placed this trade, or was I against it? Okay. Now I want to make a note here, because back here in the trade plan, if for example we select the BO fib or the SD fib, it's very important here because those are trend following strategies. So you can make the change here and you could put it as counter trend, right? But that would be incorrect. Because if you're properly following the BO fib strategy, this has to be TF. It has to be trend following, because by definition that is a trend following strategy. Okay, so if you have any questions about this, or if it's a little confusing at any time, we are here to help. So let's keep moving forward. Next, I want to know, was I long or short the position? Did I buy it or did I sell it? So if I bought, I would be long. Notice the numbers over here are changing. However, if I sold the market, of course, I would be, this would be short. So let's select short. And again, those numbers and values over there are changing automatically. So let's just keep moving forward here. The next is our entry type. We put this in there because it's important to track what type of orders we're placing over the context of all of our trades. For myself, this is typically going to be a limit order. I say typically as in pretty much 100% of the time. I don't use market orders for entries. I do use limit, but everyone's a little bit different, right? This is for you, not for me, and hopefully this is of benefit. But this is really not for calculation purposes. This is for statistics, tracking, just memorization for yourself, okay? Next, we have our entry. What was the price that I was filled at? Let's scroll to the right here. There's a lot of information. Where did I exit? Okay, so in other words, where was my target number 1? Now, I want to make some very important notes here. What if I don't have an exit here or a value? So let's put a value of 0 there. Now, notice how all these P&L columns over here, notice how they went to 0 as well. Well, because what you're saying here is I never exited. And then over here we have an exit number 2. But to define that, it's not possible to have a second exit when you didn't exit the first time, because then by definition your second exit would be the first, right? So, we always have to have a value here, otherwise that simply just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to place $13.90 there for educational purposes, and then you can see that our values come back in our P&L. Next, we have the total of ticks. Don't worry about that. That's going to be calculated for you, as you could just see. So if I change this number to say 1380, you'll see the total tick value change to 20. Just go ahead and put that back at 1390, and it goes back to only 10. So it's doing the math for you. So we don't need to worry about that. And if you notice, it's not even clickable. So we've made it where the only ones that are clickable are the ones that you're going to actually be putting information in. So next we would move to our contracts, and this works essentially the same way as our exit. If we don't have a contract, we're saying that we didn't place a trade, right? Contract would be the same as your shares or anything like that, so just bear that in mind. But what if I have a 0 here? Well, if I don't have any, that again technically means that I didn't place a trade, right? So notice how my P&L goes to 0. Right? So again, all of that math is being done for you. Put a trade back, 1 contract, therefore I get my calculations. So we have notations up here as well. If you hover your mouse over any of these, you'll notice that there are notes there, and it just basically gives you further instructions. So the P&L is the same as the ticks. It's going to do the math for you. You don't have to worry about that. Next, we have our exit number 2. So this would be your second target if you had one. Perhaps you didn't. Perhaps you exited full position here. With however many total contracts you had. Of course, you would have a 0 here. There's nothing to input, right? If we didn't have anything. So we could just simply place a 0 there. Now, if we keep moving forward, we can see the total number of ticks here. Again, math being done for us. But we need to say how many contracts did I have in target number 2. That's going to allow us to produce the P&L for target number 2. So let's say that I change this to a 4. Now notice that number doubled, right? But this number over here, the P&L back here didn't change at all. Well, again, because you're putting contracts for exit number 2. So that's not going to change your total P&L for the first target, right? So if we go back, we can see that that number goes back to 1250. So finally, we have our third exit or our third target. We have a value of 1300, therefore producing 100 ticks. We have a total of 1 contract, which gives us the equivalent of $1,250 on the P&L side. What if I traded 2 contracts? Notice how that number doubles as well, the P&L. So you'll watch this 2,500 here, and it's going to be cut in half because I'm saying instead of 2, I only traded 1 contract. I'm going to hit the enter key. All right. Now over here we have our total P&L. So we can see that for this particular trade, now if we scroll back, it was for this top trade. This was the S&P on the date of January the 20th, 2014. It was on a Monday at 8:34 a.m. I utilized my BO Fib Confluent strategy. It was a trend following short position. I placed a limit order at 1400 with the target one of 1390, which gave me 10 ticks total profit there. and I took one contract off, giving me a total of $125. Target 2 at $13.50, giving me 50 ticks with a P&L of $1,250 based on 2 contracts, and so on and so forth to arrive at a total of $2,625 for that single trade. Okay, so it's going to track all of that information for you, and then also down here it's going to total up all of your P&L, whether it's positive or negative, and it's going to display that number here. So you'll be able to see that as well. Notice down here we also see values as well. Okay, so these are going to be the total values or the total P&L based on this column alone. All right, so we can pretty much just skip over to this information here because for the most part we want to be aware of the value per trade. Right? So we do have that total, and as I said, there's really no need to go through all of these tabs because each and every one of them are indeed the same. We would make changes only to the information we discussed up to this point. Perhaps we're trading a different market, then we would change the tick value. Obviously this is going to be a different date. It's not going to be in the month of January, otherwise it would be in the January tab. We're going to have a different day perhaps, time, and so on and so forth. Again, if we scroll to the right, we would see all of this information in the right-hand column. So as you can see, it's very extensive in the amount of information that we can track. And then we can simplify all of that information into 4 simple reports. Now, if we scroll back, we can start again and look at our monthly report. As we talked about, this is our profit and loss over the context of the entire year. We have our trades. Okay, so this is the number of trades we placed per month and per day. We have our buy versus sell report. This is our buy versus sell over the context of the entire year. That's per month. And then finally, we have our trade plan. Which trade plan did I use per trade? Okay, and it's going to total those up per month for the entire year. I'm trying to think of a couple of notes here. If I go back into the tab, so there are only a couple things that are remaining here that I'm going to conclude with the video, and one of which, as I've already discussed the comments or the notes, if you will, just by simply hovering your mouse, I do want to bring your attention to something else as well. So let's say that we wanted to input a value. What do I do with my keyboard, right? Or my mouse click, for example. The way that Excel works, I could go here and I could input my value. Let's say that I'm trading, let's just go down here and say that I'm trading the Dow. So I would literally on my keyboard, I don't have to double click or anything. All I have to do is literally left click one time and type my number. So here, let's just for demonstration purposes, let's just alter this to 10. So I could just literally type in the number 10, and I could either hit enter, which will move my cursor down to the next cell, and in any case it's irrelevant because we're not going to input anything there. An alternative method would be to just simply click anywhere else. So if I go down here and say click here, notice how this cell is no longer highlighted, which means that the value has indeed been input into that cell or into the system, therefore it can use it for calculation purposes. Now if I want to change that value, all I have to do is go click it again, and then I can input the value. And again, if I want to hit the enter key, which is what I typically do, it's going to take you out of that cell down to the next available cell. So if I hit the enter key, notice how I went down. I could also use, if for all intents and purposes, if I wanted to just go right back to that cell, I could I could push the up key on my keyboard, and it will indeed move me up and down through the cells. Okay? Now, if I make a change and I want to go to the right, for example, to the next cell, which is more common, which you most likely do because we are going to go from left to right, as you can see here. So we would start, for all intents and purposes, let's actually put something in here. Let's say that I placed a trade on the ES, the S&P. So I could type in ES and I could hit my tab key. What that's going to do is move me to the right into the next column, which is exactly where I need to be because I need to input the next information for this particular trade. In this case, it is the tick value. So I'm going to put 12.5 and hit my tab key. So when I do that, I could then say, I placed this trade on, say, the 14th of 2014. So now I have a value there. I need to hit my tab key again, and I'm going to go to the right, and so on and so forth. I don't want to be overly repetitive. In this case, we need to click the drop-down menu, select our day, perhaps was Thursday, and I can hit my tab key yet again, and just keep moving forward all the way over to our P&L total, which you will see after we've input all of the information. Okay? So guys, I hope that the video has been most advantageous. I certainly hope that the Trade Journal helps you a lot. I really do. I think that it can. I know that statistics are very beneficial for all traders. Whether you decide to utilize it or not is at your own accord, but I certainly hope that you will choose to. And again, if there's ever anything that you need, if there's a further understanding that you would like, or if you need to know how to do something, anything and everything, as always, we are here for you, and we will do everything in our power to get you the information that you need. God bless you, and I hope you have a very great rest of your day.